All right, garden tour number 1, 2023. I've done like 3 or 4 takes of this with the tripod, and I've given up because it's just not working out. So I'm gonna do it vlog style. Here we go, garden tour. As you can see, we are not done building our garden for this year, but that's okay. We can still do a garden tour because I don't feel like everything has to be perfect before I show it to others. So what we've got going on here is a cottage style, no-till market garden that we are in the process of putting a fence around, which always takes longer than you think it will. Last year we did a traditional style garden with rows, and while it was very successful, it just wasn't manageable for us. So this year we're trying something different. The issue with the rows is we just weren't able to manage them properly, and the weeds and the pests and the disease took over. And this year we want more success. We want less waste, and we also want to be able to take vegetables and whatever else we grow to the market. So we've put a lot more effort, a lot more money and time in design this year. But while it was more expensive up front this year, I know that this is going to be something that lasts a lot longer than our traditional row garden did last year. Okay, so when we first walk into the garden, there will be a fence all around, and this little arch here will have a gate. And so that will be the entrance. It's the only way to get in. Up here we've got some gardenias. These are 2 different types, so obviously one is much taller than the other. And we call this the bean cathedral, or the bean cathedral, where we grow our green beans. And we also last year I grew some gourds. And this isn't done yet. I haven't seeded this yet. We've still got peas climbing up it. So when you first walk into the bean cathedral, you're gonna see our very long tomato bed. So last year in our row garden, we had about 6 rows of tomatoes, and we used cattle panels and T-posts for the trellising, and it was too successful. And when I say that, some of you might be like, well, that's obnoxious, but I've always struggled to grow tomatoes, like to just get a couple off of like 4 or 5 plants. This time we had thousands and thousands of tomatoes, and they outgrew us. They outgrew the trellising. We couldn't walk through them. It was a honest to God nightmare at some point trying to harvest them. There was so much rot, there was so much waste. I planted 95 hoping that half would survive, and all of them did. And it was totally out of control. So this year we are trying something different. We are doing this long row with tomatoes in the middle, and they're a little bit more spaced out than they were last year, and I'm only doing 50. And we are going to build a very large, very tall trellising where we're going to tie the tomatoes. So we're gonna hang string from the top. So it's gonna be probably about 12, maybe a little higher than that, 12 feet high. And we're gonna tie string down and let the tomatoes train up that while keeping them pruned. And I'm hoping that we'll get probably the same amount of yield we got last year, because way more than half of our tomatoes last year rotted and were wasted because we just couldn't pick it all. There were just too many for us to pick, and we couldn't manage the tomato plants. So we have 50 in the ground this year, and I'm thinking we're gonna get the same, if not more, of a yield because we're gonna be managing it a lot better. So I was told a little tip that huckleberries actually attract the bad plants from the tomatoes. So we planted a bunch of huckleberries along the tomato bed to see if that will help keep the pest damage down. We've got different varieties. My star tomato crop is the Floridade. It's a Florida native tomato, and it just never quits. It's such a great, delicious little tomato. We've also got, I've got basil, a long line of basil all the way down. Another thing we did last year that was a big game changer that we're doing again this year is drip irrigation. It's really not a huge expense. To set this up and then it'd be here. Now, we don't have a problem with not having enough water in the summer, but in the spring it tends to be quite dry here. And so I'm not gonna come out here and water this entire garden. I mean, it would take a ridiculous amount of time, and it's just such a waste of time. So we put drip irrigation down for each bed, and last year, like, it was just so amazing to see the difference between the garden at this new property and the property that we used to have, where I'd be outside just watering for an hour and a half every morning. This saves us a lot of time. These peas, I need to get out here and pick them because they're good to go. Okay, so on the first bed to the right of the bean cathedral, we have got Canterbury bells, which I've never actually grown these, but I'm trying to this year. And then the rest over here, we've got 2 rows of peppers. We've got habanadas, which this one is hiding. They're really tiny. I explained in one of my Instagram video, oh, this one might be gone. Nope, there it is. I explained on my Instagram at some point, my peppers look so puny and pathetic at the beginning of the season. After starting them in January, getting them all the way to March, they still just look so sad. And once I put them in the ground, it takes a hot minute, but they finally get going and they explode. We get tons of peppers every year. So if yours are small and they look sad, give them time, give them some Alaska fish fertilizer, and they'll do the job. Okay, so this is a row of, what is this? Pimentos. We've got a row of pimento peppers, and then we've got another row of eggplants. We're not big on eggplant, but I'm trying to make us become a family that's big on eggplant, because it's a really easy, listen, you're gonna hear a lot of noise while I go through this. All of my animals are singing their songs, and I don't think they've been fed yet, so Daniel's about to do that. They're all hungry. But eggplant is great to grow here, especially in hot regions, and they're so prolific and give us so many fruit. So we're gonna become an eggplant family if it kills me. Okay, this bed, which is next to this one on the right side of our bean cathedral, this is blue Hubbard squash and patty pan squash. I made the mistake of only doing 3 rows when it was supposed to have 4. So we're still gonna set up irrigation for 4. And the next time I plant this bed, I will do it correctly. Over here, we've got zucchini. So this will be a zucchini bed. And right over here is our hot pepper bed. So one year I put hot peppers with not hot peppers, and I created some sort of hybrid. That was awesome. It was awesome for my husband and not for the rest of us who can't handle the heat. So hot peppers go in their own bed this year. We've got jalapenos, ají mangoes, scorpion peppers, and shishito peppers. And again, they look puny. Actually, this bed looks better than the heatless pepper bed. Look at that jalapeno. You go! Okay, so here we go. This is an okra bed. I think they've started to sprout. Oh yes, there's one. There's one. That's the only one I've seen so far. I love growing okra. Okra is another great one to grow in the south. It loves the heat. I actually don't usually get them going till April or May, because they don't usually germinate for me in March, but this year I soaked them for 48 hours, so I'm hoping that gives them a better chance to germinate. I'm starting to see some pop up, so I think that's a good sign. All right, this next bed is a fun one. We've got a row of gooseberries, a row of anise hyssop, some borage, some nasturtiums over here. We've got some bells of Ireland. Actually, those are right here, bells of Ireland, and then calendula. Now, a lot of these things, like especially the calendula, and I think maybe the bells of Ireland, they're not super big fans of heat, but I'm experimenting. That's one of my favorite things to do in the garden, is to experiment, to see if I can push the limits, to see if I can make things grow that the internet says you can't grow during a certain season. So I do reserve spaces for me to experiment and to have some fun. Also, gooseberries are so delicious and they love the heat. So if you're starting a garden, put some of those in there. Here's what looks like maybe another zucchini bed or pumpkin bed. Oh, wait a minute. This is a Seminole bed, Seminole pumpkin bed. They are doing great. They just sprouted like 2 days ago and they're doing awesome. They look super green. I can't talk about Seminole pumpkin enough. Oh, my boys are being nuts over there. It is a Florida native pumpkin and it's so delicious, guys. It looks like a butternut squash and it is the best pumpkin for pumpkin puree. Like if you want to make your pumpkin spice things or you want to make pumpkin pie or pumpkin bread, it's so good. And you'll get so many pumpkins on one vine. I think last year one of our vines produced at least 20 pumpkins. I was giving them away. I was like cooking them and freezing them. I just had so many pumpkins. So this is a really great pumpkin to grow in the Florida heat. Even with the Florida pests, they push through. This bed, as you can see, is not done. We've got this empty space has okra seeds in it. And then up here we've got baby's breath and strawberries. I know it's a little late to start strawberries, but I did. I got my organic strawberry plants from Azure Standard. If you haven't heard about them, go check them out. And these two beds at the back end are watermelon and Kajari melon beds. So I'm gonna have a trellis that goes kind of from one side to the other, like a big arch for those to climb on. And then around them, I'm gonna plant green beans. Bush beans seem to do really well for me around melons, pumpkins, zucchini, those type of things, cucumbers. I like to plant bush beans around those. They seem to work really well and are good companion plants. Okay, so now we're coming over to the left side of the bean cathedral. And on the back end here, these are our cucumber beds. And they will also have bush beans in them. And up here, we've got a little Seminole pumpkin mound. And around it, I'm gonna either plant more bush beans or onions. And when I say onions, I'm talking about bunching onions, like green onions. Now's not the time to grow big bulb onions in Florida. That's best to start in fall, and the same with garlic. Over here, we've got amaranth at the back. In the middle, we have a little like grass flower called bunnytail. And up here, we have some more baby's breath. Amaranth is a type of grain. I love it. It tastes delicious in things. I don't really grow it for eating. I just grow it for beauty because it's so cool. And it also seems to pull bugs away from other plants, which I really love. If you don't know what bunnytail is, look it up. It's so cute. I bought it because it's so cute. And I started it from seed. And I have a ton of seeds. So that's something you can start from seed easily. It germinated instantly, like within 2 or 3 days. And they're doing great. And then I also have baby's breath just because I want it. Here's some more pumpkin mounds. This one is a Cinderella pumpkin that accidentally grew in our pasture from our pig's poop. That did so unbelievably well. So I harvested the seeds. The pumpkins were gorgeous. And this is a garden bed for a lumpy green pumpkin that I bought from a local store and harvested the seeds from. We'll see what happens there. He's standing on his throne. Over here we've got more zucchini. And this bed, I'll be totally honest with you, I don't know what I planted here. So we'll find out when it sprouts. I should have written it down. Sometimes I do and sometimes I don't. Over here we have a lot of cilantro, quite a bit of oregano. Here's what it looks like. It's very tiny right now. Here's the cilantro. Looks puny and sad. It'll be okay though. And then on the end we have some echinacea. Directly to the right of the bean cathedral, we've got the herb bed. So we've got some peppermint, some rosemary. I don't remember what those are. So this is like my favorite part of the design of this garden that I'm about to show you. I'm gonna try to show you. It's kind of hard doing this with my phone, but the entire border, so it's a giant, almost square, it's more of a rectangle, but the entire border is going to be flowers. So the front border on the left side and the right side will all be sunflowers, and I picked a sunflower mix because I just wanted to see what it would look like with a bunch of different types of sunflowers. In my mind, it's so beautiful. And they have sprouted. So it's time to come in here and put some mulch in. On the left wall of the garden is I did a woodland wildflower mix. So the left side of our garden gets a lot more shade than the right side does. And so I picked a flower mix that loves the shade. So I know there's baby's breath in it. I think there's poppies, blue buttons maybe. The picture was beautiful, and so I picked those. Oh, coreopsis is in that one. So I picked that to put along the whole left border where it gets a lot more shade. So here's the back end, and the back border will be filled with cosmos. Hey, Coco! For the cosmos seed, I picked another mix of different types of cosmos, which I'm just so excited. I seeded some cosmos in another area, and they sprouted within 2 days, and it seemed like all of them sprouted. So I really seeded this border heavily with cosmos, and I'm so excited to see it. And the last border, which is the wall to the right, will be all zinnias. Zinnias are my favorite flower to grow. I have never failed at zinnias. They're so easy to grow. They'll like grow in the cracks of sidewalks, and they just want to grow. So that's a great flower to start with if you're a new gardener. It will make you feel good. You will have some success, and some success is really important when you're first starting out, because there's a lot of failure in gardening, and that can be really discouraging. All of the zinnias have sprouted. So it's time to come mulch this to keep the weeds out. But can you, look at all of these? How beautiful is it gonna be? One of the things I love about this garden design is that we can have all kinds of things going at once. So once this bed is done right here, we can let it rest and then start something new in it while other beds might still be going. That was the issue with the row garden last year, is we couldn't start and stop things and then start new things. It was just such a challenge, and this gives us way more control over what we're doing, and it's going to allow us to garden all year long versus just one season, which is what we've always done. And I hope that the workload will be a lot less, so that I still feel motivated to garden in the fall and the winter. That's one of my issues, is I'll have success in a spring summer garden, but the way we've set up our gardens in the past, we create so much work for ourselves that by the end of July, I'm so sick of the garden, I'm so sick of being outside, that I don't want to go into the fall and winter. So I hope that this design and this method that we're doing relieves some of that work so that we can do it all year long. We also want a lot more control over our garden this year, because we want to sell and share our food. Because we've discovered that on this property we have tons and tons of excess. Last year I was taking baskets and baskets of tomatoes to church, and this year I hope to bring baskets and baskets of tomatoes to the local market. I tell you what, people who have been doing this for a long time while holding their camera, their arm has to be jacked. This is so uncomfortable. Oh my gosh, my arm hurts. What you doing, Em?
Nothing. Just walking in the garden.
Yeah, just wanting to admire it.
Yeah.
Okay. I love to give. My heart is in giving. I enjoy being generous. So while we do plan to sell a lot of our produce this year, I'm still going to be giving it away just because I want to. I love sharing what we grow, mainly because it tastes so good, and I love inspiring other people to do the same, or to at least, even if you're not going to grow things, because it's not meant for every single person, and that's okay. And I absolutely accept that. But if I can inspire you to be more thoughtful about your food choices, and I'm not talking about like being uber perfectly healthy. I'm just talking, I mean, like when you eat a homegrown strawberry versus a strawberry at the store, there's such a difference. When you eat a zucchini from the store and then a zucchini out of the garden, it's night and day. I hated vegetables for the longest time because I didn't realize that they could taste good. And that's sad. That's a part of our food system that has to change. And I don't know what that looks like, but I do think there's a lot more people learning to grow their food, or if they're not growing their food, supporting others who are growing their food. And that way, I think we can slowly but surely change the way we eat and the way we enjoy our food. I forgot to show you our potato/survival garden. Let's do that. Okay, so over here, separate from our main garden and behind our playset, is our potato/survival garden. It's looking really good. When we moved onto this property, this spot was the other owner's garden. And it seemed just like a good spot to grow some things. Now, we don't have any water out here or any irrigation, so I call it a survival garden because I'm not lugging water out here. So if it wants to grow, it has to survive on its own. I love that we have these sunflowers that are growing amidst these potatoes. I think I tried to plant sunflowers here late last summer and they didn't germinate, but some of them did this winter, and here we go. They're rocking now. Over here are some things that I'm growing because I want to harvest the seed. So like cabbage, this isn't the time to plant cabbage here, but once these go to seed, which will probably be, I don't know, probably within the next month, then I can harvest the seeds from that. I've got baby bok choys that have flowered, and I'm gonna harvest seeds from those. And over here, I don't really know what these are. I don't know if this is a radish or a beet. Someone want to tell me, because I don't remember what I planted, and sometimes I get them mixed up. I can't like ever get them right in my head. What is what? Here we've got some carrots, which I'm never super successful at, but I try them every year. We'll see what happens. So we did potatoes here last year, and it went really well. I think we doubled our seed potatoes this time, so we should have double or more of what we harvested last year. And right here is my sweet Lucy and Ella garden. I tilled this little spot for them, and then they did all the weeding, and then they put one little tomato plant here and one right here, and then all around it they threw wildflower seeds down. So I think this spot will be really precious. That's it. That's all we've got for our garden tour today. We've got a lot of work to do to finish up the fence, to put all the mulch down, to put the rocks down, and then the fun part comes where we see everything grow and start to harvest it. So I'll be doing these every week, hopefully, so you can see the progression of our garden. Thanks for hanging out with me today.